All right, this is the Brian Hornback Experience. It's episode 143. The last two episodes, we've kind of talked about what's going to happen on Tuesday, January the 10th, and that is the growth policy plan. They're going to be, Mayor Jacobs' growth policy committee will be meeting. They may vote. I think it's anticipated that they're going to vote Tuesday night. Then that'll go to county commission, city council, and to the town of Farragut. All three bodies have to vote on that. This is kind of tied to that, but at the same time, it might take us in a little bit different direction. But this guy's no stranger to Knox County, Knoxville. His name is Vic Jernigan. And Vic has been very involved in development, been very involved in all kinds of different things as far as land and land use. When we talked on Friday at the Motley Crew lunch about potentially doing this, I'm reminded of every time he gets up at Motley Crew to introduce himself, he says that he's in the business of buying land. So if you don't like your neighbor, let him know, and he'll go buy their property. But anyway, with no further ado, Vic, how are you, man?
Other than a little bit hoarse, I'm doing extremely well, bro.
Well, apparently after, I guess on Friday night after Motley Crew, I started coming down with whatever this is. The good news is you and I are several miles away from each other. We're doing this via telephone and video recording, and the people who are listening can't get it either. So hopefully we'll get better over time. Vic, so when people talk about, when people out in the rural areas talk about all this land use stuff, and you know, I get it. I mean, you know, if you've been around, and I particularly feel for the folks, Don Close and the folks at Thunder Mountain, I feel for them. And that's one reason Don's been on here twice. But, you know, when we talk about not just, let's not just say South Knoxville and Thunder Mountain. When we talk about Strawberry Plains Pike, when we talk about Emory Road, Tazewell Pike, Washington Pike out in the Corrington area, you know, 20 years ago when I was on the school board, you know, we talked about a new Carter Elementary or a new Gibbs Middle School. The school board member I served with at that time decided that it was better to go with a Gibbs Middle School because they didn't like, and I didn't like, us busing the kids from Gibbs to Holston, and then those kids going to Gibbs Elementary, then going to Holston, and then going back to Gibbs High School. So we built the Gibbs Middle. But then after Mayor Burchett came in, a lot of groundswell about Carter Elementary. Even back then, 20 years ago, when I was on the school board, they talked about we have to have a middle school because growth's coming. They talked about we got to have a Carter Elementary because growth's coming. So I think what you and I are going to talk about, and I'm going to shut up and let you talk, is kind of the infrastructure. What's happened over the last several years, and just as part of an introduction, Vic kind of started this group called REI, Real Estate Investors Group, back in 2010, 2011. He was talking about these things in 2016 and 2018. And on the blog post, I'll link to an affordable housing town hall that happened in 2018 with Vivian Shipe, the lady who's over the voice of the voiceless. But Vic, I'm just going to shut up, let you kind of talk about kind of the infrastructure that's happened over the last 10 to 20 years in particularly Corrington, Gibbs, Strawberry Plains, and anywhere else you want to talk about.
Brian, for sure, I appreciate you reaching out. It's this particular topic about how Knoxville is going to grow, how Knox County is going to grow, it's the simple fact that over time, Knoxville, the people who live in Knoxville, have been extremely resistant to change. It's maybe everybody talks about NIMBYism and, you know, not in my backyard or build absolutely nothing anywhere. But over the years, Knoxville has burned down millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars from both the federal government and the state of Tennessee for building roads. And it's one thing to say you don't want growth, but it's another thing to say we won't take your money because we don't like where you're going to build the road. one to pick on, and because there was originally back in 73, 75 had been opened up, and on the west side of Emory, on the east side of Emory, I'm sorry, some of the older, more powerful families in Knoxville proposed the first enclosed mall to be built right there, and it was going to straddle Emory. It was going to have a bridge over the top of Emory Road and be two sections, and that was in 73.
Wow.
The neighborhood opposed it, kept it tied up in court. 5 years later, they were still trying to rezone the land. And part of what had been agreed to was the widening of Emory Road to Dry Gap Pike. They were going to be able to, they thought they'd be able to access some funds from the state and widen Emory Road back to Dry Gap. The state had looked at widening Emory Road from Central High School over to Dry Gap several times. So, because of the construction of 75. And then, of course, that got turned down, and in either 76 or 77, Charles Spangler met with the property. So TDOT was looking at accessing funds to go ahead and widen from Dry Gap, take the federal money, go from Dry Gap Road all the way over to the Maynardville Highway. And then then they decided not to go to Maynardville Highway. They decided to go to North Freeway. And so the about 3 miles, and and they were looking at it pretty hard. There'd been a couple of public meetings to talk about this, and Charles Spangler met with a group of the property owners out there. So we've got the federal government getting ready to widen Emory Road from 75 to Dry Gap, and the state is going to provide the funds to improve and widen Emory Road from there to the North Freeway.
Wow.
Spangler meets with the neighbors, and I think there was something like 70 or 80 property owners who said they would not sell their property because they didn't want Emory Road widened.
Wow.
And Spangler, excuse me for coughing, but Spangler.
No, you're good. It's that time of year in good old East Tennessee. So take a drink of water if you need to.
He said something to the effect that if the people of Knox County didn't want to sell their land for widening of a road, and they talked about what would happen if you widen the road, the speed of the traffic will pick up. It'll become a more dangerous road because people will be driving faster. It'll increase more people wanting to come to the area. And so Spangler said, no problem. We won't take your land. And the state of Tennessee decided, well, we're just going to take our money and go play somewhere else for 20 years. It was in the mid-90s before the state came back and said, well, let's take a look at what we're going to do, and we'll just relocate all of Emory Road. So then the people didn't want the new Emory Road from 75 going over to Clinton Highway to be built because they didn't like the intersection of where the new Emory Road was going to come into the Clinton Highway. And they wanted it to go north of Emory Road and connect with West Emory, sort of making an S curve right there.
Right.
And the state didn't want to do that. They wanted to go across Clinton Highway, make a bigger intersection right there, literally move the intersection down to where Clinton Highway comes in now. This is probably boring for the people that are there that are listening to this, but it just shows what happens when the citizens become they don't want something to be done.
Well, I mean,
so anyway, the road never got the west side of Emory Road, of the new Emory Road, has never been built because of litigation from the citizens. The issue from Tazewell Pike and going on the west side of Emory, the east side of Emory, I'm sorry, all the way out to Harbison Cross Road, in 1995, the road commissioners came to East Tennessee, came to Knoxville, spent 2 days here, and he toured from Kingston Pike at Level Road, out Level Road, down what is Callahan Road, then, of cross 75, through Dry Gap Pike, coming out of Dry Gap Pike at the at Emory Road, and then went out to Harpson Crossroads, where Tazewell Pike intersects Emory.
Right.
And
the heart of the Gibbs community.
The heart of the Gibbs community. And they proposed back then the funding of a cross-county connector, which effectively becomes Shod Road connected.
Right.
But so because the road was going to, for the people that live out there, I'm doing this from memory.
Right.
So, and I am old, so my memory may not be exact, so somebody can do the research and look back through archives to double check what I'm saying. But pretty much the proof is on the ground.
Right.
In the sense that the way it was going to be designed was this 4-lane, 5-lane road was going to come from Harpson's Crossroads across Maynardville Highway, connecting with the improved section of Emory Road that had been designed, and going to and it would go 275 and then out to the Clinton Highway.
Wow.
At Dry Gap Pike, to relieve the traffic problems that would be created at Interstate 75, there was a dogleg that was going to be created, a T intersection where the Weigels is at Dry Gap Pike.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going to be 4-laned with a turn lane past Callahan through the Dry Gap Pike, then going out to by Sturkey, where Sturkey Hills is, out to Dante Road and connect with Callahan Road. So effectively, you would be able to turn left at where the Weigels is and get on a 4-lane divided highway and pick up the interstate at Callahan. Or go all the way to where the Costco is at the intersection of Clinton Highway and Kingston Pike and Canton Hollow Road. And of course, people didn't like that.
Right.
And so the money was available to widen, and so you can see what happened. They widened Dry Gap Pike from Emory Road down to Callahan Road, or Cunningham Road.
Right.
And it just stops.
And it becomes a wagon trail again going into Central Avenue Pike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And originally the money was there, the design was there to do that. And so the section from Maynardville Highway to about a half a mile past Tazewell Pike has been fraught with all kinds of nobody wanting it done. It's been pulling. It was like really hard to get the intersection of Tazewell Pike redone. So when people talk about there's no infrastructure, then the other is because Knoxville's been resistant. The greatest loss was the reconstruction of Millertown, Murphy Road, Washington Pike that had been planned just shortly after it was in planning but didn't get nothing happened. All the public meetings just after Hackney was rejected over on Washington Pike.
Yep.
No, I'm not saying whether Hackney should have gone there or shouldn't have gone there. People have different opinions, but Hackney was going to do a lot of things. If they did go there, they were going to improve Washington Pike. They were going to bring sewer out to Ritta School. They were going to do things that they needed to have done for their own facility, but also for the good of the community.
Right. They were going to go on the land that's currently still vacant across from Ritta School, correct?
Exactly.
And instead, and they were down off 17th Street, right in the heart of Fort Sanders, and they wound up moving out to a business park on the Roane County, Loudoun County line off of Interstate 40, west or east, whichever way you're going.
Right. That's turned into the anchor for several thousand jobs in Roane County.
Right.
So, it would have been nice to have had several thousand jobs in Knox County.
Yeah,
and
when Hackney moved out there, again, I'm like you. I'm going by memory, but I remember there is a part manufacturer that moved in that same industrial park beside Hackney that is providing parts for the VW plant down in Chattanooga. So it does. Although you have a plant in Chattanooga, you do wind up with hundreds of jobs in an area like Roane County that help the plant in Chattanooga.
Exactly. And so this is not to be talking all the different infrastructure deals, but the Millertown Pike improvements were to widen Millertown Pike, create a 4-lane divided highway from the Millertown Pike exit past Mill Road, and it sort of went a little bit cross country up off of Mill Road to connect to the intersection of Murphy Road and Washington Pike. And Murphy Road, so you would be able to come to the intersection of Murphy Road and Washington Pike and go straight ahead and make a connection to Millertown side of on the back side of the mall. And the other, if you turned right, Washington Pike was to be improved as a 4-lane divided highway all the way out to Greenway, where you turn right in front of the Target, where you turn left to go to get on the interstate right there.
Yep.
They had the state spent millions of dollars in design work and public meetings. They had 3 public meetings and all kinds of negotiations and I believe I'm still correct with this, Mayor Ash, after all the public meetings, they were in design phase for right-of-way acquisition. After all of that, Mayor Ash decided that he wanted a bridge to be built over the railroad tracks and come in on the backside of the Knoxville Center Mall.
Mm.
The bridge cost more than the entire road project.
Wow.
The way that I understand it, Mayor Ash, and I could be wrong,
Right.
Mayor Ash basically said the city would not participate unless the state built the bridge. And the state said, no problem, we won't build any of it.
Wow.
And they just rolled their plans up and never broke a blade of grass. And if you think about what that road would have done for the growth of all of northeast Knox County, people have spoken at the meetings before about how much traffic is at the intersection of Murphy Road and Washington Pike. These are things that the state had planned for 20 years ago.
Right.
And almost 30 years ago now.
And if that infrastructure had been put in place, Easttown Mall, Knoxville Center Mall, whatever you want to call it, probably would not be shut down today because there would be the homes to support it. It's just like the Orange Belt. I mean, I know that Mayor Ash was involved in the Orange Belt, and that's been more recent history. But if we had the Orange Belt, which was going through Hardin Valley wouldn't have some of the traffic problems they have today either. Now, there also wouldn't be some of the subdivisions there is today because the road would be going through there. But you'd have the infrastructure.
Well, look at it. Let's follow up on that point right there. Let's go back to Shod Road Extended.
Mm-hmm.
So the Shod Road, the public meetings for the Shod Road Extended, which is the 4-lane connector that's going. There was somebody that spoke at the last growth policy meeting, a gentleman that lives out, I think he's a truck driver, but he was the first person that spoke, and he was talking about the traffic on Ball Road and Ball Camp Pike today.
Mm.
And that there's just too much traffic on those roads. Well, they're building the new road today.
Right.
It intersects. It's coming into the intersection of Middlebrook Pike at Lovell, where Lovell and Hardin Valley come together right there, where the Weigels is, and it goes cross country to Western Avenue, and will eventually. The city would not give up the right of way for the golf course. So the public golf course that's on Shod Road.
Right.
And
Knoxville Municipal Golf Course. Yep.
Knox Municipal Golf Course. And so the last leg of the road project will be that leg of the project. But the problem with this again is that this was laid out in 2000. The meetings were so you can imagine the amount of money that the state was prepared to spend in Knoxville and Knox County between 1995 and 2005. The head of TDOT had been here. They'd walked the roads. They'd seen the roads. They laid this out. They made this plan for the growth of where Knoxville could grow to, because that's where the land was. Connect the interstates with a sort of a mini beltway around Knoxville, which is what this Shod Road Extended had originally planned to be. And the county began and the state began acquiring the right-of-way in 2003 and 4, and I believe all of the right-of-way had been acquired by 2005. And none of the money got spent to build the road.
Wow.
The road right-of-way has existed on the KGIS maps for 25 years. 22 years.
Wow.
Since 2002 when they began buying, I think they began buying right-of-way in either 2002 or 2003, and all of the right-of-way had been bought by 2005.
Wow.
They didn't build any of the road, but when the road was planned, they had done a study of how many thousand houses were going to be able to be built along the new Shod Road Extended, because back then it was called Callahan Road Extended, but it was going to bring sewer, gas, and this new access to all this undeveloped land in that valley. And it would have come in and connected at Middlebrook, and it would have changed the growth pattern of how Knoxville was growing as Hardin Valley was beginning to develop. So Hardin Valley would have continued to develop the way it did, or it has developed. However, it would have developed more slowly, and there would have been an opportunity maybe to look at how you could redesign getting in and out of Hardin Valley.
Right.
But again, the county never bought the first blade of grass, never built the first foot of infrastructure right through there. They lost millions of dollars over the years in just getting their EPA documents in place. I mean, it's Robert Booker gave me the term. It's not malfeasance; it's misfeasance. And county commissioners who vote to build and appropriate money to buy, to do design, to have public meetings, and have the money available and don't use it. I mean, I don't know what the punishment should be for a county commissioner who doesn't accept the money to build the roads, to build the infrastructure that people are screaming for, because today they're using exactly the same arguments that they used 30 years ago. Right. If we build these roads, it'll create too much traffic.
Right.
If we build these roads, people will drive faster. I mean, it's, I'm not saying that farmland is not really important. I'm not saying that.
Right.
And certainly everybody likes open space. As a matter of fact, there was somebody that owns a farm, and she got up and spoke about the fact that people are seizing the view of her farm. They talk about they don't want her to do anything, and they don't understand why they can't walk their dog on her property or ride dirt bikes on her property. But she is not wanting the county to grow to take her property. And there's some giant misconception that if the county approves these plans, that all the land is going to disappear in one day. The problem is some of the people who live in the area are, in effect, asking the government to come in and say, we don't want to grow in this area because our neighbors will sell their land. One of the people that spoke back in early December said that very thing. If you approve these plans, developers are going to come in and they're going to offer these farmers top dollar for their land. That's a quote. That's what he said exactly. We're going to offer them top dollar for their land, and they'll sell. And we won't have farmland anymore. And the people off Chapman Highway, where
Right.
bought a 300-acre farm, and now I think they bought another 300-acre farm. And the people out there don't want the houses being built.
Right.
And again, these are difficult issues for any community to deal with. But if you think in terms of what those people are saying is that these people have bought the land, they bought it as farmland, and we desperately need housing to be built in Knoxville, but we don't want it to be built there. And we don't want our sewer improved, and we don't want our water lines to be improved, because we don't want these houses to be built down here.
Right.
And it's important to remember what's happened over the years is that the term developer has become a pejorative. It's something bad to be a developer. But the reality is, farmers were the original developers. They're the ones that traded for the land with the Native Americans. They're the ones that cleared the forest, or destroyed the forest, as some people might say. They're the ones that rerouted streams so that they could have more water on the land that they wanted to till. The reason that TVA, one of the primary reasons that TVA was authorized to do the things it was to do, was because there were millions and millions of acres in the state of Tennessee that had been destroyed by the farmers and would grow nothing. And TVA was authorized to come in and show farmers how to farm the land in a better manner. And there's all kinds of video of TVA doing that back in the 30s, and photos of that, of destroyed farmland all over the state. And because of bad farming practices for decades. And so, again, we've got to have farmers. It's essential that we have farmers who want to work, grow crops, raise cattle. But the thing you hear over and over in the meetings is the farmers are talking about their 5th generation farmer. They're a 7th generation farmer. They're a 100-year farm. And what you also hear almost immediately is they'll go through the different things their farm has been doing. And they started out as crops, and they went to dairy. And then when the dairy business went away in the 70s, they began doing beef. Now they're doing different crops. And they're doing some beef still. And farms are looking for, some people do mazes and corn mazes, and do different things to raise money for their farms. Entertainment. So
Luke Bryan went out to Greenback 2 or 3 years in a row and put about 50,000 people into a farm just for a one-night concert. But I mean,
so it's a situation where the farming has changed to meet the demands of the farming, and so now the crop that can be raised on a farm is housing. And the term that I think people should get used to is the term housing provider, because what Thunder Mountain wants to do is provide housing on what used to be farmland. And the people who are they're saying that these developers are going to be coming in and buying up all this land, they're going to be providing housing. And what happens when you have sector plan and urban growth plans is that the people who are voting on what they want are always wanting something that they can't pay for, that they really like, and the people who aren't living here yet don't have a vote. And just like I was pointing out back in 2016, Knoxville is dealing with the unintended consequences of a beautiful city. People who love farmland and love open space say the city will be destroyed, the county will be destroyed if we allow development to continue. The people who want to live here will tell you they'll make Knoxville a better place by being able to move here, pay taxes, go to eat in the restaurants, buy clothes. The people who aren't here yet want to be here. And the county, it's heresy density to say it, but what we need to have is greater density, because just like farming has changed over the years, housing has changed, and people no longer want yards.
Yeah.
I mean, you can read about it, but there's a whole generation of home buyers today that grew up during the Great Recession, when 9 million houses were foreclosed on in this country. Another 8 million houses, 17 million houses, I believe was the final total between 2008 and 2012, that were either in pre-foreclosure, behind in payments, or foreclosed on. And so you've got a whole generation of people that are home buying age that view housing as an anchor. They don't view it as an asset. And they want a park that they can go to with their kids. They don't want a yard that they have to mow.
Right.
And you go to other cities like Denver, is an easy example, where the new areas of Denver are being developed at 8 and 10 units an acre for houses that are 2,500 to 5,500 square feet each. Individual houses on individual lots, so a 5,500 square foot house is pretty much sitting on its entire lot. It may have a 15 or 20 foot backyard, but those houses are selling for $400,000 to $900,000.
Right.
And all the buyers are in their 30s and early 40s. And what Knoxville is still wanting, the people in Knoxville that are complaining about housing as if it were built in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And the people who are buyers of housing today want a different size house. They want smaller yards, more clustered development, and it needs to be much higher densities than 3 and 4 homes per acre. You can do cluster development. You can do all kinds of things where you can have high density but have it all located toward the center of a property, so you actually have more open space surrounding the property. But again, you and I are talking about infrastructure and things that didn't get done, things that could have been done. But and how Knoxville decides to grow is going to be, we have to look at the fact that the people are bringing jobs on their back. It used to be people moved to take a job. But now, and I'll end on this because I want to deal with this fact about growth.
Right.
There have been people that have stood up at the Planning Commission meetings talking about the growth factor of 70,000 people or whatever it is way overstated. And that they do projections on how many people, and we only need 1,500 houses a year or something, as if it were going to be linear growth. But the growth numbers are substantially understated. We are going to be growing at an exponential rate over the next 5 to 7 years because more people are going to be moving here. Let me just deal with, and again, this is me just pontificating, but please challenge my facts. The coal industry is being put out of existence. So we are surrounded to the north by coal counties. As the jobs begin to disappear and the hospitals close, Jellicoe can't keep a hospital open.
Right.
As the hospitals disappear, there's no reason for the young families to continue to live there. And if you drive a coal truck, you've been making $50,000, $60,000 a year, your wife can't find a job, so she's home taking care of the kids. There's no reason to stay.
Right.
You move to Knoxville, the guy can get employed immediately because he's got a skill set. And the wife, if she wants to go to work, will be able to find a job, no problem. And they're going to get the new jobs, which are coming into the manufacturing businesses here, that are all paying between $18 and $25 an hour. And there are thousands of those jobs which have been created. Axle Logistics is doing an expansion. They're adding 650 jobs that are going to pay somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 a year. 650 jobs that don't exist today over the next 2 to 3 years. There's several auto companies, just as you were pointing out, here in Roane County that have got manufacturing facilities here in Knox County, and they're all at full capacity and expanding with another line of production.
Wow.
Thousands of jobs. The fact that, separate to that, we've got all these people that are moving to Knoxville, as I said, who bring their job on their back because they can work from anywhere, and they're choosing to live in Knoxville. And the reason that that's going to be really important is because the airport is going to, at least in the next 5 years. Right now they did in January of last year, January 22. 2 years ago now.
Right.
The new runway opened up. And they talked about the fact that this new runway was going to be able to completely change the way planes took off. Bigger planes would be able to land. More people would be able to come. Flights would be on time because of the way the runway had been corrected. There'd be fewer weather delays. And it turned out that the airport volume increased by about 500,000 people.
Wow.
Between January of 22 to December. So it was about 2.7 million people came to the Knoxville airport. And that gets to be important because the easier it is to get here, the more people will come here. And in 5 years, we'll be able those big Airbus 300s will be landing. And they're projecting that we're going to go from 2.7 million to something over 4 million, maybe 4.5 million passengers a year coming into the Knoxville airport.
Wow.
Now, if you don't think about what kind of growth that another 1.5 million passengers adds to the demand for restaurants, housing, hotels, the number of businesses that will relocate here, the number of people who will have direct flights from, and this is a biggie, direct flights from New York and Boston will be coming to Knoxville.
That does explain why the apartments and the motels are popping up all around the airport right now, though.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And the growth is not going to stop. And the people because we have thousands of jobs that are available today, thousands of jobs that are coming, and we have greater transportation opportunities than we've had in the past. So this urban growth, where it's going to grow and how it's going to grow, I'm sorry that the infrastructure didn't get built 20 and 30 years ago when we could have got the money for free. I'm sorry that at every turnaround, people have fought and tied up with litigation for years until the housing providers gave up or went broke. But the simple fact is that Knoxville is in the bullseye of growth in the southeast United States. And it is not going to stop. We couldn't stop it if we wanted to.
All right.
So it's, and Knoxville has a choice. It can die a slow death, the way all cities like Detroit, everybody does. If the manufacturing moves away and eventually the people move away, there's nothing to keep the people in the community, and the economy eventually begins to decline.
Well, and then what happened? Then if people move away, then how does Knox County then continue to collect $1 billion to pay for the necessary services that Knox County provides today?
It really does begin a slow. The growth that's occurred in West Knoxville has carried East Knoxville and South Knoxville and most of Northeast Knoxville for 30 years.
Mm.
And the density of population is just not available anymore in most of Southwest and West Knox County.
Right. Yeah. I'm. You and I both are in the middle of it. You know, I'm Southwest, and you know, I knew where you were at one time, but I know you're right down here with me. So
it's going to be a very, no matter what happens, there'll be lawsuits. People will be unhappy.
Oh yeah.
And people will be suing on technical issues. There weren't enough public meetings. Public meetings were changed. There hasn't been enough transparency. We didn't know what this was about. We should have known sooner. There need to be more. And there'll be all kinds of people that sue the county for all kinds of reasons to try to slow up implementing a growth plan. But it's just a literal suicide for the county to not be able to grow and maintain a housing base for the people who want to work in Knox County. And that's what it all gets down to.
Right.
So
Well,
Brian,
yeah,
I
we
rambled on here
oh
for
no,
45 minutes. I
no,
apologize.
oh no, we're good. We went about 40 minutes, and we may have to wind up doing another one of these. I do appreciate it because the whole thing about the Brian Hornback experience, both the podcast and the blog for the last 20 years, is that I want people, as our community makes these decisions, I want both voices heard, and there's truth on both sides, and somewhere in the middle, decisions have to be made. And Knox County, I as a 4-year former school board member, and having watched how the sausage is made, it's not pretty. And there's nobody wins in any of these things. But it's good to get the history of the infrastructure. It's good to get a grasp of what's going on, because when my wife and I moved from East Knox County in 1992 to Southwest Knox County, I mean, we had a great subdivision for people who were starting with one kid, and then we wound up with 3 kids, and we were able to move. And then then you begin to see what I had as farmland down here begin to become built up. And I still mow my yard. I enjoy my yard, but at some point, I'll have to move to something else. I will have to downsize at some point. But it's just interesting as I watch different zoning issues before the planning commission, before the county commission, before the city council. It's always interesting. And this whole missing middle, Bentley Marlowe and I had that podcast was one that I had multiple people come up to me after it was over and said, "Man, I got so much insight from what you and Bentley talked about on how the sausage was made on that missing middle." And that issue's still not over yet. And now we're going through the growth plan, and I hope that Mayor Jacobs and the committee can find some common ground, because ultimately, as you said, we have to have the housing, we have to have the jobs, and we have to have the farm and the open space. And at some point, all of that has to mesh to make a good decision. And for me, it's blog material, it's podcast material. And that's kind of cruel and cold to say, but it is what it is. But Vic, I appreciate you being on here, episode 143, and I will certainly share that video of the Vivian Shipe Town Hall about affordable housing back several years ago, and any other information you come across. I'm always happy to read it. I think I first met you back in 1999 when I was running for school board, and you've always been all the times we've been able to stop and chat, it's always been an enjoyable conversation. There's been times when we've agreed and when we've not agreed, but at the end of the day, we both walked away as knowing that each of us got to hear and got to say what we wanted to say and hear, and there's not enough of that in this world of governance anymore.
Well, Brian, for sure, I really, again, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Yep.
It is a certainty that over time, the ability to have a conversation and at least make the effort to understand both sides of the problem is the way things do get solved. And this is not an easy situation, because farmland has, as I have mentioned, it's changed over the last 100 years, and now housing has changed over the last 100 years, and how that continues to go forward is going to be hard for the county to come up with.
Yep.
But I do hope that the county never turns down free money again.
Right.
That's my one wish.
Absolutely. All right, Vic, it's great talking to you. You have a great night, and everybody else, we'll see you on the next Brian Hornback Experience. Thank you.
Take care.